And welcome to the first ever episode of the Finance Bible podcast. We are your hosts. I'm Oscar, and I'm joined by our co-founder, Zeke. What's in store for today, mate?
Well, firstly, glad to be here, Oscar. We've been working on this for quite a while, getting the page up and running and trying to create a bit of a following to help people reach financial freedom.
Yeah, look, I think a good place to start is just explain the concept behind the whole Finance Bible and the real reasoning of why we have created this page and our podcast. Look, Zeke and myself, Zeke, you can confirm this with me, but page is basically trying to help everyday Australians just learn the ins and outs of the finance game. It's obviously quite a confusing and confronting area in people's lives that people aren't really sure of due to, the school systems and media not really portraying information or, enlightening you with how to look after your finances or your taxes or budgeting, which, in everyday life is really the most important factor of yourself and building that wealth. Zeke, I'm sure, growing up in school, you weren't taught any of that as well, or what was your story behind that?
Yeah, no, that's right. So in school, obviously, you get to do English and geography and all of these subjects that I don't think are as important. And then you get to a point where you finish school and you're joining the average Australian earning less than $75,000 a year, either A, going to go study at uni, potentially waste 5 years to get a not so good job that doesn't pay so good, spend a lot of money along the way, and ultimately fall into the trap that most Australians are falling into now. On top of all that, the school's not doing their part. And then on the media every day, you'll see the stock market crashes, biggest crash, it loses 500 points and stuff like that. So learning about this kind of thing, it can be scary when you've got the media and the school system not really teaching you the way to go about it.
Yeah, that's it. Like you said, Robert Kiyosaki, the author of Rich Dad Poor Dad, once said, a lot of people in the population these days or in society are just running the rat race and joining the rat race. So
That's it, the rat race.
You graduate from school, get that university degree, you just have a job paying you an income. You're solely reliant on this income. So you don't have any passive income from investment properties or stocks or shares. You're in the rat race. It's going to be pretty tough to build your wealth from that. And this is what we're all about. So we're going to help all you guys with our post and our podcast, try and open your minds and your eyes to society and see how you can separate yourself from that race to build financial freedom and start your wealth.
Just on that, a good spot to start for everyone after this podcast is to actually read Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you don't want to read it, if you don't like reading, there's audiobooks on YouTube, obviously. It's about 5 hours. Just get on there and listen to it. Really opens your eyes up to finance in the world. Although it's old, it's still completely relevant in today. And there's actually a new book, like a follow-up edition that was released last year.
Like you said, mate, with the Robert Kiyosaki book, we've also done a post a few weeks back with our top 4 personal development books, which, we've both read all 4. Obviously, we've placed them in our top 4 because they're extremely beneficial and the skills and aspects which they portray to us and, the tips they give us for everyday life, extremely beneficial. So do have a look at that post if you haven't already. Yeah, we've got The Barefoot Investor, obviously. Many of you probably have read or heard about that. 5 AM Club, which is another great book by Robin Sharma, just telling the lessons of the benefits that waking up early has on not only your body, but on your mindset. The Millionaire Next Door. This, gives an insight into the millionaires of the world and their spending habits. Also great book, and obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad, which we just touched on briefly. So look, we're going to try and get a podcast out each week, as well as posts. Zeke, I believe we're going to do, each podcast after this introduction podcast, we'll, touch on each post into more depth and, give a bit of an understanding just other than a photo and a bit of a bio.
Yeah, no. So we want to touch on each post we've made so far, because although we can put a bit of information on there, it's hard to get into the nitty gritty of it all. And you've got comments on there about certain things and certain questions or people's views on things. And there's things we've left out and things could be misinterpreted too. So we kind of want to go through each post individually, and we'll do that weekly and break down exactly what we're talking about and why.
A bit of background of myself. I grew up in Melbourne, Australia for 23 years. I recently moved up to Sydney for a job opportunity where, currently I'm working, hence why the Finance Bible was created with myself and Zeke. Yeah, so I did the typical go to school, graduate from university afterwards, get a job. But, it wasn't until probably a year or 2 years out of school when I was in university that I realized the mindset I had at that time was just work, work, work. The salary will look after me. Wasn't thinking about anything, investments or how to make extra money while I sleep. So that was kind of a bit of an awakening for me, and made me realize that, started making me think what I really want to do and look at my, my future and how I'm going to support my future family or myself wealth-wise. So hence why I've moved to the financial planning industry. I get to work with customers and, families in pretty tough situations sometimes. A lot of them not really sure of how it all works in the finance game, like we said earlier. So basically it just, it's pretty rewarding for myself, and I'm sure Zeke, you're on the same boat, but, helping these families reach financial freedom or as close to as possible. So look, that's kind of my story.
Similar story to you there, Oscar. So I grew up actually in Newcastle, moved around a bit before then, settled down there with my family. We lived there for probably 12 years, and now I'm in Sydney working alongside yourself. My parents were always pushing for you to go to school, get a good education, study hard, complete the HSC, which is what we have in New South Wales. I don't know if everywhere has that. Yeah, Melbourne man.
I've realised that.
And then we would get good grades, go to uni, get a good job, get paid a salary, start a family, get a house.
It's the old school way.
The classic old school rat race, as Kiyosaki calls it. We'll put an episode up of why that's not the way to go anymore. There's a lot of reasons for it, so I'll touch on them in that. It's too many to go through. My family's not at all wealthy. We never have been. I was kind of in a situation where at about 16, I was working 20, 25 hours a week, and I recognised going through uni and school wasn't the way to go. I did still do my HSC and got good enough grades. I could have gone to uni and done whatever I wanted, but I chose not to get out of the race and begin my own movement, which I did. And now I'm 20 years old. I've got a bucket load of assets and investments, including a property. And here I am working in financial planning industry and helping clients do the same thing.
There you go. That's the aim of this podcast. So today's episode is just a brief overview of, the Finance Bible, who Zeke and myself are, and a bit of our backgrounds and what kind of, shifted us and grabbed our interest into this industry and making this podcast. But going forward, we're going to have, distinct episodes such as building up your first $100,000. We're going to go through that step by step from the start to finish and help you build that balance up into your bank account, as well as, through shares and stocks and property. And also, even if you listeners out there have a certain topic you're unsure about, or you want to learn more about that, shoot us through a DM or direct message on Instagram.
At the Finance Bible.
That's it, at the Finance Bible. Share that around. More the merrier. But yeah, shoot us a message. We'll get onto that. We'll get a post going, and going forward as well, every post we do is going to have a podcast relating to that post, just so you have more information. So we're always happy to help. That's our aim here, to just give you some finance literacy, get you knowledgeable in the area which a lot of people in society aren't knowledgeable about. And yeah, we'll go from there. It's an exciting time to build this podcast, isn't it? We're here in New South Wales, COVID lockdown again.
Yeah.
Loving life.
Round 2 of the lockdown. We're at about a month and a bit now. So it's time to time to find something to do, and why not use our time to help educate the people? Next week, we've got something exciting coming up. We'll be diving into one of our first posts on at the Finance Bible's Instagram.
It was the first official post we've ever done.
It was. And we'll be running you through how compound interest works. So that's going to be very good. Until then, keep budgeting.
Keep investing.
And keep listening. See you guys.
See you guys.
Audio Jungle.